I wanted to watch this JD Vance interview. I saw this clip, and I think in this video he talks about the childless cat ladies thing being a mistake, which I think might be fun, but this one.
Okay. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020
Damn
election?
girl, 37 months of the nations of Denims putting sanctions on my wallet.
Congress, thank you for the 37 months. Thank you.
Your question. Is it okay that big technology companies censored the Hunter Biden laptop story, which independent analysis have said it cost Donald Trump millions of votes?
Senator Vance, I'm going to ask you again. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
Did big technology companies censor a story that independent studies have suggested would have cost Trump millions of votes?
Senator
I think that's
Vance,
the question.
I'm going to ask you again. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020
And I've answered
election?
your question with another question. You answer my question, and I'll answer yours.
I have asked this question repeatedly. It is something that is very important for the American people to know. There is no proof, legal or otherwise, that Donald Trump did not lose the 2020 election.
You're repeating a slogan rather than engaging with what I'm saying, which is that when our own technology firms engage in industrial scale censorship, by the way, backed up by the federal government, in a way that independent studies suggest affect the votes, I'm worried about Americans who feel like there were problems in 2020. I'm not worried about this slogan that people throw. Well, every court case went this way. I'm talking about something very discrete, a problem of censorship in this country that I do think affected things in 2020, and more importantly, that led to Kamala Harris's governance, which has screwed this country up in a big way.
Senator, would you have certified the election in 2020? Yes or no?
I've said that I would have voted against certification because of the concern that I just raised. I think that when you have technology companies...
The answer is no.
When you have technology companies censoring Americans at a mass scale in a way that, again, independent studies have suggested affect the vote, I think that it's right to protest against that, to criticize that, and that's a totally reasonable thing.
So the answer is no. And the last question, will you support the election results this time and commit to a peaceful transfer of power?
Well, first of all, of course, we commit to a peaceful transfer of power. We are going to have a peaceful transfer of power. I, of course, believe that peaceful transfer of power is going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States. But if there are problems, of course, in the same way that Democrats protested in 2004 and Donald Trump raised issues in 2020, we're going to make sure that this election counts, that every legal ballot is counted. We've filed almost 100 lawsuits at the RNC to try to ensure that every legal ballot has counted. I think you would maybe criticize that. We see that as an important effort to ensure election integrity, but certainly we're going to respect the results in 2024, and I feel very confident they're going to make Donald Trump the next.
This is the guy that on Friday at 2:55, he's like, teacher, excuse me, didn't we have homework to turn in? The Fortnite text makes the font, sorry, the Fortnite TikTok font makes this so unserious. Yeah. So I thought maybe this interview would be entertaining. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I thought it might be a fun one to watch. And then, depending on if it's fun or not, we'll watch all of it. If not, I want to watch the Jubilee video. I want to watch this one. Can one cop defend himself against 20 criminals? Looked pretty bad. Looked really stupid, so. All right. I'm going to get some, I have water. I'm going to get some snacks, actually. It'll be 2 seconds. I'll be 2 seconds. I'm still listening, though.
Hey. We will... Senator Vance, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Before we get into policy, I do want to sort of ask you a few questions about how you got here.
Sure.
And your worldview a little bit. You know, one of the things that many people said to me in advance of this interview is which JD Vance is going to show up. And I think that speaks to sort of this persistent question that people have about you.
Sure.
Which is, they saw you on the debate stage and you seemed more empathetic, more moderate. And then there's the JD Vance we've seen on the campaign trail, the JD Vance we've heard on right-wing podcasts who can sound more aggrieved, more angry. How would you explain that contrast?
Well, isn't that how most people are, right? Sometimes they're frustrated with what's going on in the country. Sometimes they are a little bit more optimistic. Sometimes it's both, right? You're maybe optimistic about the country, about its people, about its resources, about its beauty, but also frustrated by its leadership. And I think it's sort of the nature of being an American in 2024, at least in my political persuasion, is that you have some, I think, deep and abiding love for this nation. You have a certain, at least I have a certain optimism and hope rooted in my trust and faith in its people. But I am very frustrated by what's going on with our leadership and some of our public policy. So I think it's just all of these things that all these things are true at once, and I think that's just how most people are.
So you were frustrated at the debate?
Well, sometimes I got frustrated, right? I criticized Kamala Harris's immigration policies. I got a little frustrated at the, what I thought was the artificial fact check there. And but again, I mean, that frustration, I think, coexists with a lot of other feelings too. And I try to sort of, try to show that to everybody. I think that if you watched, a 45-minute JD Vance rally, you would not have been surprised by the debate performance. I think what happens is that if you
A 45-minute JD Vance rally? When has that ever happened?
you take a clip out of context from 4 years and that's the only way you've ever been introduced to me, then sure, the debate performance might have been surprising, but I don't think most people were surprised by it.
Your own campaign, though, said that you were doing Minnesota nice to sort of throw off Tim Walz, who was expecting perhaps a more combative version of you. So it was a tactic.
Well, I mean, look, I guess that's a distinction to me without a difference is, again, sometimes you're going to try to discuss the issues of the day. Sometimes you're going to be pushing back a little bit more aggressively. I think what was interesting about how we did the debate is I try to be conversational with Tim Walz because, to be honest, I don't know Tim Walz that well. I don't have a strong view of him. There's a lot of disagreements I have policy-wise, but my real disagreement is with Kamala Harris, with the way that she's led the country, with some of her views and some of her opinions. And so in some ways I don't know if combative is the right word, but I was certainly disagreeable vis-a-vis Kamala Harris's policies. But I didn't feel this need to sort of go in and light into Tim Walz. That's just not how I feel about him.
Well, why do you think, though, so many people have that thought about?
You literally were shit-talking his military service and saying that he was discharged dishonorably or whatever, and that he bitched out so he doesn't have to go to war. What are you talking about? What? You do not. This is not even remotely true.
About you, that they don't know which version of you they're going to get. And, there's been think pieces about this. There's been podcasts about this. People who are trying to understand who you are.
Sure. Well, I think a lot of it, I mean, who knows?
His pants rising up makes him look even more like a Hitler Youth troop leader. Dude, stop. Like, stop. Stop. Oh my God, dude. I didn't notice how much he skipped leg day. Jesus.
Who you are.
Sure. Well, I think a lot of it, I mean, who knows? But my best guess on this is that if you're a New York Times reader or you're broadly center left, most of what you've read about me has come from some version of something that was planted by a political opponent. Now, let's say I do it.
I like how people will play quotes of him saying something. And he's like, this is planted propaganda. Yeah, that quote of me calling childless women cat ladies, that was planted, okay?
2-hour podcast interview, and you see the 45 seconds where I say the most contentious thing that I said in that entire 2-hour interview. But I think if you watch the entire 2-hour interview, you wouldn't be surprised with, what I've said on the debate stage, with what I've said at my rallies, with what I've said during my press conferences and so forth. So I think that it's the nature of political media in 2024 is because you can sort of take a clip and make it go viral on social media, or you can write a news story about that viral clip.
This guy makes Pence look like a moderate. Well, okay. Pence still has that weird like mommy thing going on, okay? But he makes what's his name? Mitt Romney look like a moderate.
Just not sort of digesting the long form conversation that I think most people, again, if you were to ask the, normal middle-class American, whether they agree with me or disagree with me, 2-hour conversation about politics, and you went through a dozen different issues, I think that you'd see, well, sometimes they'd be pissed off about something. Sometimes they'd be, pleased with something. Sometimes they'd agree or they disagree. But I just think that the way that we do political media is really built around sound bites, Maybe that's always been true, but it's certainly true in 2024.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that there's something else going on, though, which is you have obviously shifted some of your viewpoints. You've
Sure.
acknowledged that.
Look, I mean, yeah, like, look, there's certainly I was anti-Trump, and now obviously I'm running as Donald Trump's running mate. But it's something that, again, if you watched the 2-hour podcast interview, you wouldn't be surprised about because I talk about it, and I know that's part of what we're doing today.
Yeah, it is. I mean, just to remind people, you called Trump America's Hitler, and I'm sure you possibly don't like that quoted back at you at every single moment. And I read a really fascinating interview that you gave to the American Conservative in 2016,
Okay.
where you said Donald Trump, and I'm quoting here, he has dragged down our entire political conversation. He spent way too much time appealing to people's fears. Why do you feel more comfortable with his approach today?
Well, I think there are a few reasons. I mean, one is I was pretty optimistic right after Trump's election. So you sort of go back a little bit, the book really took off right before he was elected. And then
Hillbilly
it kind of-
Elegy.
Yeah, Hillbilly Elegy. And it had kind of like this second win that was somehow even bigger than the first win. And I remember I was doing all of these interviews, the night of the election. I think I think it was ABC where I spent most of that night. And I was talking to people sort of privately, but then of course I was going on TV. And the biggest takeaway that I had from that moment is that it was genuinely a shock to the senses for most of America's political and media class. They really were certain that he was going to lose. I mean, to be fair, I didn't think he was going to win. I thought he had a better chance than most people. But in the immediate aftermath, there was this sort of sense of, okay, well, we misunderstood something, we got something wrong. Maybe we should try to understand where this like underlying frustration and sense of grievance is in the population writ large. And that lasted for all of about a month. And then it was like very quickly, it was the academic studies that said that, well, Donald Trump's voters were not motivated by any sort of legitimate concern. They were only motivated by racism. And then, of course, the media kind of laundered that in to the mainstream discourse. And then, of course, there was the Russia cycle where it was, well, the only reason Donald Trump won is because he was like, collaborating with Vladimir Putin, which, even when I was anti-Trump, I thought that narrative was absurd. And I guess that what I slowly learned.
Metal truth. Classic 30-year-old man groomed to hate Trump because of the media. Classic. Watching the Goring interview. Stop, dude. Stop. I love how he hides behind the fact that, like, how was I supposed to know I fell for the misinfo? I was just a little small bean 4 years ago. Sorry. I didn't know any better. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You don't. How do I know that you aren't falling for more propaganda? You seem really incompetent, dude.
Is that if you believe the American political culture is fundamentally healthy, but maybe biased towards the left, then Donald Trump is not the right solution to that problem. If, as I slowly developed a viewpoint, that the American political culture was like deeply diseased and the American media conversation had become so deranged that it couldn't even process the frustrations of a large share, maybe even a close to majority of the country, then when you say, well, I don't like Donald Trump's language, well, Donald Trump's language actually maybe makes a whole lot more sense if you assume that the institutions are much more corrupted than they were before. So
what? How does his language make any more sense that they're corrupted? How does him talking about like weather misinfo and hurricane misinfo make any sense about what? Close to a majority is such a funny phrase. Yeah, dude. Sure, technically it's a minority, but we're close to the majority by like a lot. Dirty Q-tip, thank you for the 5 gifts. That's a crazy name, by the way. But thank you. Thank you so much. I couldn't think for myself, but I'm better now.
The point that I got to was if Donald Trump didn't talk like this, and if Donald Trump wasn't going directly at the institutions, then he wouldn't be able to get anything done. And most importantly, he wouldn't be able to illustrate how broken the American political and media culture is right now. And so what I saw in 2016 as a fault of Donald Trump's, by 2018, 2019, I very much saw as an advantage.
That's interesting. So what I'm hearing you say is that in 2016, you felt that the divisiveness and the language was a symptom of perhaps a problem with Donald Trump. And by 2018, you saw it as the solution to the problem?
I put it slightly differently. I think that in 2016, I saw the divisiveness in American politics as at least partly Donald Trump's fault. And by 2018, 2019, I saw that divisiveness as the fault of an American political and media culture that couldn't even pay attention to its own citizens. And Donald Trump was not driving the divisiveness. He was merely responding to it and giving voice to a group of people who had been completely ignored. And he was doing it in a way that really did poke his eye at that diseased media culture. And I think Donald Trump is, not just, I put it this way, I don't know that.
To talk about a diseased media culture, when you literally went on air talking about how you made up the cats and dogs thing, the Haitians eating cats and dogs thing, and you just made it up, is crazy to me. It's insane to me. All right, thank you so much for the 21 months. Thank you. What kind of chip? You guys are going to judge me. I don't want to tell you what chips I'm eating.
Anybody else in 2016 possibly could have done what Trump did. And I think his rhetoric actually was a necessary part of it.
I mean, one of the reasons
He's a grifter, who would have thought? Wow, it's almost like he called Trump Hitler because he thought it. And then once he got a position where he could exploit Trump, he was like, oh, actually, I love Trump. Tell us, Denim. Okay, it's the dill pickle flavored chips. I just love how acidic they are. It's so good.
I am focusing in on this initially, which sort of JD Vance comes out, is because earlier this year, The Times published a series.
It says on follower safe space. Hell fucking yes, it is. As long as you don't mind me making fun of his tiny head.
Of email and text exchanges
Yeah.
from 2014 to 2017 between you and your Yale Law School friend, Sophia
I'm just kidding. You guys make those jokes more than I do.
Nelson, who is transgender. And that friendship eventually ended in her telling because of your support for a ban on gender-affirming care for minors in Arkansas.
Yep.
The tone of that early correspondence was respectful. It was affectionate, even though you didn't always agree with her. Were you more open to differences at that time in your life?
No, I don't think so. I mean, look, I think, I'd like to think we're having a respectful conversation. But, when I disagree with people, sometimes I'm a little sarcastic. But that was true 10 years ago, right? Sometimes I like to make fun of the political and media environment that we're in. But that was true 10 years ago, too. Again, all of these things exist at the same time. Most people are complicated. They're not just like happy-go-lucky or really engaged in dialogue, right? Sometimes they're making jokes. Sometimes they're more serious. I just think that's how I am. I think it's how most people are, too. But look, I mean, Sophia, I'm not going to sit here and criticize Sophia. I love Sophia. I am very sad about what happened between me and Sophia. I think that
I was muted. I'm being censored by woke media. What the fuck is he talking about being sarcastic? I don't think he has enough charisma. I don't think he's unlocked the sarcasm skill tree yet. He talks the way that, like, I imagine cornflakes would talk. I don't think he's capable of being sarcastic. I also don't know what instance he's talking about where he was being sarcastic. I would like to know, but I don't even know what he would be talking about. Sarcasm is when I lie and I regret it. Yeah.
what
Your cornflakes are talking to you? Yeah, they're telling me not to masturbate.
going back 2013, 2014, she's my friend. She's transgender. I I didn't fully understand it. I just thought, I love this person and I care about her, and I don't have to sort of agree with every medical decision that she makes or even understand it to say, well, I love you, I care about you, I'm still going to hang out with you, we're still going to talk about football and sort of be friends. And I think we had this conversation. I can't remember when it was. Maybe around the time my Senate campaign. It was maybe before, but I had children at that point, and we were talking about gender affirming care for minors.
For anyone who doesn't know who the fuck he's talking about Sophia Nelson. It was a friend of his who isn't friends with him anymore. Here. She used to be friends with JD Vance. Why a friend of Donald Trump's running mate from law school decided to speak out against him. Senator JD Vance, Republican vice presidential candidate, and Sophia Nelson, his trans classmate at Yale Law School, forged a bond that lasted a decade. In 2021, Mr. Vance's support for an Arkansas ban on gender-affirming care for minors led to their falling out. Sophia Nelson, now a public defender in Detroit, discussed Mr. Vance's pivot politically and personally with the Times. Nelson shared with the Times about 90 emails and text messages with Mr. Vance. Here are some of the most revealing moments of their correspondence. Oh, I want to see. Do they show? A screenshot of an email from Mr. Vance to Nelson that says, anyway, just my thoughts. I'm pretty proud of what Cincinnati has done, but I don't know anything about tying grant funding to body cameras. I love the body camera movement and anything that puts cops back in the mindset of service and protection instead of control and coercion. I hate the police. Given the number of negative experiences I've had in the past few years, I can't imagine what a black guy goes through. He's such a grifter. Holy shit. Oh my God. Stan, think of the 3 months. And then here's another excerpt from an email from Mr. Vance in 2015. I'm not sure how I feel about this Muslim stuff. I'm obviously outraged at Trump's rhetoric. He's such a fucking slimy little liar, dude. I worry most of the time about how I worry most of all about how welcome Muslim citizens feel in their own country. But I also think that people have always believed crazy shit. I remember a poll from a few years ago back that suggested a near majority of Democratic voters blamed the Jews for the financial crisis. And there have always been demagogues willing to exploit the people who believe crazy shit. Oh, God, dude. Oh, no. Does she have any statements about this? Wait. Oh my God, here he is in 2016 saying the more white people feel like voting for Trump, the more black people will suffer. I really believe that. And then, is there more? Oh, I guess I have to see the transcript to see her talk about him. Can I see it?
Banking with Capital One helps you keep more money in your wallet.
Silence. New York Times, do not tell me to bank with Capital One. I'm already banking with Capital One. Please. Is it not bad enough that they have to send me fucking letters every other day about how I should sign up for one more credit card? Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so here's the interviewer saying, how does it make you feel to read those exchanges now? The interviewer is asking Sophia how she feels reading the old messages that her and Vance used to share. She says, this relationship we had of mutual respect across the political divide has completely vanished. I think it's sad for me personally, but I also think it's sad for the country. Why sad for you personally? It's heartbreaking to see somebody you respected and cared about turn on you and your neighbors, especially in the context of knowing that's not who he was. That's disappointing to see anyone do, obviously. Zoinks. $10 says Vance Kasparian 2028, make America grift again. Oh, no. Oh, Oh, dude. Beer Bash, thank you so much for the 23 months, dude. I get so sad thinking about the inexperienced stuff. I don't want to think about it. It just makes me sad inside. My fallen crush, yeah. Yeah. And it's fucked up because she still like goes on different podcasts to talk about how the left ostracized her and all this other stuff. Spinchy, thank you so much for the 2 months at Prime. Like this shit. What is this? Glamorous journalist reveals she ditched Dems after they sympathized with her with homeless pervert who molested her. Excellent job, Daily Mail. Only publishing the best stuff.
Yeah, so it was so weird because it was unexpected, like super unexpected. I in 2022, it was around March. I was walking my dog. It was not quite dark yet, but the sun was setting. As I'm walking my dog, I see these two guys that they were just kind of like moving around weirdly. You know, they seemed kind of manic and their clothes were tattered. So I knew that they were probably homeless. And I also knew that they're probably on something just based on like the twitchy way they were acting. But living in LA, I mean, there's homeless people everywhere, right? So I've never had problems. I didn't think anything of it. But as I was bending down to pick up my dog's mess, one of the guys like grabs me by my hips and he had an erection.
Oh, God.
And just starts like humping me. And I didn't know what to do. Like I was terrified. I didn't have a weapon on me.
Yep.
Like I had no way of defending myself. I didn't know how far it was going to go because it's two guys. I'm by myself with my little dog. It was one of the most terrifying things ever because I'm pretty good at defending myself. In that moment,
And before the video continues, I just want to say, I haven't seen a single person say, based alert. Every single person I've seen talk about this instance has said, I'm really sorry that you've had to deal with that. And I'm really sorry that you had to experience something traumatic. Unfortunately, melting the homeless people and throwing them all in jail doesn't fix the problem. It only makes the problem worse. And if you want a world, which I want a world, to live in that this doesn't happen, or at the very least it happens rarely, like as rare as we can get it. We need to give these people housing and help them reintegrate into society. It is the only way to fix this fucking problem. Throwing them all in jail doesn't help us. And people did not get mad and say, well, you know what, fuck you. You know what, whatever, the homeless person should do whatever the fuck they want. No, they said, I'm sorry you had to experience that. And I really am genuine when I say that that's fucking awful and no one should have to deal with that. But punishing every homeless person is not the solution. And it's fucked up that you think that the solution is to put all these people in jail. That's not the solution. But she and most other news networks have since spun it into, oh, yeah, clearly they were rooting for the homeless guy. Like, what?
I just knew there was no option.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And luckily he stopped and they just laughed at me and walked away as they were laughing at me. And so there was the fear and then the humiliation and weirdly shame. Like I felt ashamed for some reason. And it was awful. And it was really taking a toll on my mental health because I have to walk my dog, right? So at least 2 or 3 times a day, I'm going outside kind of scared. And so I opened up about this on the show.
Which, like, genuinely, very valid. I totally understand that. Again, I feel bad that she had to deal with that. Again, however, putting them in jail, throwing all of them in jail doesn't fix the problem. Also, why did this cause you to go on a birthing person rant? What happened there? That one was completely devoid of any real traumatic experience. in this instance, I have a lot of sympathy because that is a very traumatic experience. I'm sorry. Someone called you a birthing. Oh, come on. Oh my God. That I have no sympathy for. That is not a traumatic experience. That is someone using words you don't like, which you can tell them, I don't want you to use those words. That is not traumatic. I understand that this is traumatic. I understand that being fucking molested feels traumatic. And I have total sympathy for that. I have no sympathy for the birthing person comment. That's fucking stupid.
Not really thinking much of it. And before I know it, I'm starting to get these messages, and it's like really, really harsh stuff. And it's about how you are painting a picture of the homeless community. You know, how could you be like this? You know, these are your unhoused neighbors and they need help. A few people accused me of being racist when I had never disclosed the race of the individuals who did this to me. And in fact, they were white. And so like when they started accusing me of being racist, I'm like, wait a minute. Why are you assuming that the people who did this?
Of course.
Yeah, like I think you might have a problem here.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that woke me up. That woke me up because I'm like, oh my God.
They eat their own, mama.
Bro, that's just called being on the left, dude, okay? You think I'm on the left because leftists are here? Fuck no, dude. There's like, I would say 20% of leftists are just like the most insufferable people you've ever fucking met in your life, dude. Oh my God. Oh my God, dude. I genuinely, some of just like the most annoying people on the planet. But you're not there for the fucking people. You're there because you believe in the values you believe in. Reconstructing your whole political view because of annoying rad libs online is wild. Yeah, it's just silly. Anyways, back to the JD Vance interview.
I think a more honest way to say is not gender affirming care, but chemical experimentation on minors. And, you know, my affection for her didn't mean that I thought this was a reasonable thing to do to 11-year-old children who were confused, sometimes confused by social media, sometimes confused because it's really hard to be an 11-year-old, certainly in today's media environment. And yeah, we had a very strong disagreement about whether the proper response to that was humility. I would say it's humility. Don't give life-altering care to these kids, potentially life-destroying care to these kids. And she disagreed with me. She thought it was a sort of affront to transgender rights. Now, what I would have done normally in that situation is to...
What a fucking joke, dude. What a joke.
Say, you know, we can agree to disagree. I mean, Sophie and I disagreed about a whole host of issues over our long friendship, and sometimes we would do it aggressively, but ultimately, we're going to be friends despite that. And I think it was, to be clear, I mean, yeah, she leaked my emails, and I think it's a violation of trust, and I'm frustrated by that. But I would still be Sophia's friend today, even though I feel very strongly that she's not just wrong, but very dangerously wrong about chemical experimentation on minors.
I guess what I'm asking is, have you, like you came to see Donald Trump's approach as a necessary means to an end, did you come to see that as a necessary approach for yourself? I mean, you talked about in Hillbilly Elegy and the power of persuasion through empathy, but you also bring a much different approach to many of the things that you do now. So again, I think it was very jarring for people to...
And yeah, as everyone else is already saying, agree to disagree on your right to exist. Yeah.
See those emails and see a JD Vance that frankly hasn't been on display.
Well, they say it's jarring to see the emails, but they say it's jarring to see some of my rally performances, and then it's jarring to see my debate. Maybe the problem isn't that I'm, you know...
But do you see it as necessary now to be more abrasive?
So I don't answer that question, but maybe the thing that they're actually noticing is that if you see somebody in all their complexity, they don't fit the caricature. That it's not some big change that I've made. And yes, I've changed my views. I'll be honest about that on certain things, but there's not some like major change. It's just that they're seeing, sometimes they're forced to see the non-caricature version of me. And I think that's certainly going on. But no, I mean, look, I think, look, President Trump's approach is President Trump's approach. His style is his style. Do I think that his style and his approach is a necessary corrective to what's broken about American society? Yes, I do. That doesn't mean I'm going to try to be Donald Trump because, one, nobody can be Donald Trump. I think he's a uniquely, interesting and charismatic figure, but it's just not who I am, right? Fundamentally, he and I are going to have different styles. But I think if you were to take, Donald Trump's style and the way that he criticizes the media and the way that I'm criticizing the media to you right now, I think those criticisms are actually pointing at the exact same direction. We're just putting it in slightly different ways in our own sort of distinctive perspectives. But I've never felt like I need to somehow copy somebody else's style.
I mean,
Bold for someone with the flavor of a Wonder Bread piece of toast. Oh my. Sorry, I have to indulge, chat. Please let me indulge. What value is birthing person adding? Female and male are better medical terms. Oh yeah, why are they better?
it wasn't just the tone of those exchanges, though. You did express some beliefs that are different than the ones you hold today. I mean, you said,
Like, what do you mean?
I hate the police. And so I'm wondering,
Well, okay.
Did you write that? Why did you write that? What had happened to make you feel that way?
Sir, first of all, have you ever said something in a private conversation that out of context wouldn't necessarily translate to a public?
Out of context. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Because I read the context and you said you had a lot of bad experiences with them and you hated the police and that they should have body cams. So out of context is wild when the context was provided.
Conversation, I think 100% of people would say yes. I don't exactly remember when that I sent that email, but I strongly suspect that what happened is, so when Usha and I lived in San Francisco for a couple of years, and when we first moved, this is I get frustrated even thinking about it right now. When we first moved, there was a break-in in the car that I had, and it was stupid. I shouldn't have left her suitcase in the car to begin with, but I did, and it had a ton of like completely priceless things.
Let me guess. You went to the police and they were like, sorry, no can do. If you find the guy yourself, we might do something or we might not.
Talking about priceless as in we paid a lot of money, but like the necklace her grandmother gave her that she bought in India that she gave her on like the morning of our wedding, things like that were stolen. And I went to the police in San Francisco, and it was. Have you ever seen the movie The Big Lebowski when the guy's car is stolen? Okay, so I love the Big Lebowski. When like the dude has his car stolen, he says, "Hey, are you like investigating it?" And the cop kind of chuckles and says, "Yeah, we got a couple detectives down at the crime lab." That was kind of the response that I got to, "Are you guys going to try to recover this stuff?"
Oh, so let me get this straight. You had a bad experience with a cop and realized all they do is suck taxpayer dollars and do jack shit. And then what? You were like, dude, fuck the police. Is that the context? Wow.
I was frustrated at the police. I fired off a frustrated email to a friend. And again, this is why I think it's like a violation of trust is, do I think that is at all representative of my views of the police? Do I think it was representative of my views of the police writ large in 2016 or 2014 or whenever I sent that email? No, of course not. You send something to a friend. Hey, I'm pissed off about this. I think it's very ridiculous.
This is a total joke because speak to anyone that has been to law school or has graduated law school or is a lawyer, and they will tell you none of them respect the police. And they don't respect the police on the principle that they know the law and the people that are supposed to enforce the law don't know the law. This is like, I'm telling you, across the board, you will struggle to find people who have studied law that actually respect the police. They don't respect them.
This man literally looks like a skibbity toilet. If a skibbity toilet apocalypse actually happens, I guarantee he'll be one of the first people to turn into a skibbity toilet.
What the fuck? Stop. I just talked to a criminal defense attorney last night at a wedding, and he straight up said, fuck cops. Yeah. Yes. I was a paralegal in personal injury for a while. All the lawyers hated cops. It's because the lawyers have to study so fucking hard to be able to practice law. And practicing law with a pen and a paper, and cops get to be given fucking guns and badges and just go out in the world, and they don't even know what rights people have. They don't even know whether or not you're allowed to be doing something. And they're given a fucking gun to enforce the law that they don't know. That's why anyone who studies law, and most, like the vast majority of lawyers, don't respect cops. Because they know that most cops are power-hungry freaks that have no care for the law or the sanctity of the law. They just want to feel big and strong and not be held accountable ever. So, anyways, yeah. Also, I would imagine if you've ever had to prosecute a cop, it must be so infuriating knowing that the entire fucking precinct is actively trying to help this piece of shit. Like, I've heard stories of cops that have gotten away with DUIs. Just like totally drunk driving, either hitting people or objects, and somehow they get like 1 month paid time off. I would imagine as a lawyer, if you're trying to like help your client in a case, and everyone in this fucking precinct is building a story for this guy and defending this guy, like, I would be mad. I would be fucking mad. I'd be like, this is so bullshit, dude. This is so fucked up. This guy is a fucking danger to the people around him, and you guys are all cool to protect him. So, this is so stupid, man.
For the media to say, well, JD used to be like a defund the police guy because in a private email I expressed some frustration about a distinctive police officer? Come on.
So just to be clear, Senator Vance, the reason we ask about this is because it is a window into your evolving views, and that is important for people to know who they're going to be voting for.
I think it's totally reasonable for you to ask about it. I'm saying the certain political members who have said, oh, this reveals like somehow JD didn't support police officers 10 years ago. I just think it's a preposterous argument.
After you left Yale, you went to Silicon Valley, the world of venture capital. You worked for and became close with Peter Thiel in 2016, 2017. He had an enormous influence on you.
Yeah, dear friend.
By 2021, you were running for Senate as a supporter of Trump. And right in between that, in 2019, you converted to Catholicism.
Yeah.
I'm a fellow Catholic. I find this very interesting. And I would love for you to describe what appealed to you about the Catholic faith.
Yeah, so before I answer that question, I just offer a caveat out there. So what I really hate, and I've seen this with some converts, is they come into the faith, they act like they know everything, they speak for all Catholics. I'm never going to do that. I never want to do that. Look, I mean, I think there were a couple of things that really appealed about it to me. I mean, first of all, generally Christianity. I was thinking about the big questions, thinking about 2019, but 2017 to 2019, when I was thinking about re-engaging with my faith. I became a father during that period. I was very successful professionally. And so thinking about the working class family that I'd grown up in, I had a lot more money than I ever thought I would have. I had my own venture capital firm. And there was this weird way where I felt like I had succeeded at climbing the ladder of meritocracy, but I'd also found the values of the meritocracy, frankly, deeply wanting and deeply lacking. And when I started thinking about like the big things, like what do I actually care about in my life, right? I really want to be a good husband. I really want to be a good father. I really want to be sort of a good member of the community. I wanted to be a virtuous human being, in other words. That was sort of the thing that I kept on coming back to, was how to be virtuous. And I thought that Christianity that I had discarded as a young man answered the questions about being a virtuous person better than the logic of the American meritocracy. And then,
I grew up Catholic. You have to be a psychopath to convert to Catholicism as a whole ass adult. Low key, kind of true, man. As a former corrections officer, I can't stand cops, the whole dangerous job thing. If you aren't okay with the risk, get another job. Yeah. I have no words, dude. This fucking, the religious slop that Republicans push makes me so annoyed. It's so stupid. I need to be a virtuous person. And the only way to be a virtuous person, obviously, is to fucking read this stupid book. Have you considered being a virtuous person because you have human empathy and want to be virtuous? What the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck? I don't understand. You should just be a good person because, you know, it's hardwired in you, not because you need some fucking book to tell you.
You know, that sort of led me on a journey of, okay, well, I'm going to be a Christian again. What church do I actually want to raise my children in? What church do I want to be a participant of? And I just kept coming back for very personal reasons. You know, friends of mine who I thought, you know, were just good people. You know, not all of them, but a lot of them were Catholics, and I talked to them about their faith and about what appealed to them about their faith, and that eventually led me to getting baptized in 2019. And the other thing I'll say about it is, you know, Usha was raised in kind of a Hindu household, but not especially religious household, and she was like really into it, meaning she thought that like thinking about the question of converting and getting baptized and becoming a Christian, she thought that they were good for me, like in sort of a good for your soul kind of way. And I don't think I would have ever done it without her support because I felt kind of bad about it, right? Like you didn't sign up for a weekly churchgoer. I feel terrible for my wife because we go to church almost every Sunday unless we're on the road. And
does she go with you? I mean,
she does. Yeah, she does. We, you know,
has
she's
she
got 3
converted
kids. No,
as
she
well?
hasn't. No, that's why I feel bad about it is, you know, she's got 3 kids. Obviously, I help with the kids, but because I'm kind of the one going to church, she feels like more responsibility to keep the kids quiet in the church. And I felt kind of bad, like, oh, you didn't sign up to marry a weekly churchgoer, and are you okay with this? And she was sort of more than okay with it, and that was a big part of, I guess, the confirmation that this was the right thing for me.
So I'm really interested about your conversion also because you wrote a lot in Hillbilly Elegy about the chaos of your family life
Sure.
as a child. Your mother was
I'm
an
sorry, wait.
alcoholic and a drug addict. She's been sober for nearly 10 years now, we should say.
Wait, you guys brought up a good point. Why did he say she's got 3 kids?
I'm really interested about
Are you okay with it? Like, oh, you didn't sign up to marry a weekly churchgoer, and are you okay with this? And she was sort of more than okay with it, and that was a big part of, I guess, the confirmation that this was the right thing for me.
So I'm really interested about your conversion also because you wrote a lot in Hillbilly Elegy about the chaos of your family life
Sure.
as a child. Your mother was an alcoholic and a drug addict. She's been sober for nearly 10 years now, we should say. You talk about being raised by your grandmother and your older sister and having a rotating sort of cast of untrustworthy parental figures.
Sure.
Was it further
specifically men
back?
in your life? How much
Might have
of
been further back.
your draw
I
to
might have missed it,
Catholicism do
sorry.
you think is related to the appeal of the strong family values, of the focus on the nuclear family?
That's a big part of it, especially the stability of it. I'm not just talking about the stability of the nuclear family, but the stability of an institution that has endured over 2,000 years, right? I mean, I think like most people, very aware of my mortality, and I kind of like the idea of being part of something that's existed over many generations and hopefully will endure for many, many generations to come. But yeah, I mean, when I talk about being a good husband, being a good father, you know, the way I've often put it is the American dream to me was never making a lot of money, buying a big house, driving a fast car. It was having what me and Usha have right now, right? Like,
It's strange that you went into venture capital then, but go on.
no, sure. I mean, look, like I wanted to make money. I'm not saying I'm anti making money, but like when I thought about what I really
Wait,
wanted
she
out of my
kinda-
life,
Wait, she kind of ate his ass a little bit. I never thought about driving a fast car, having lots of money. The American dream is just having a family. Of course. That's what it is. Weird that you went into venture capitalism, but okay. But okay. Jonas, thank you so much for the 10 months.
what I really wanted was what Usha and I have right now. And then I wanted to raise our kids in stability. I wanted our kids to know, like, something that really bothered me when I was a kid was like people would ask me my address and I would give them my address, not knowing if they wrote me a letter a month from then, whether I would still have that same address. Like I hated the fact that I had these different addresses, which is something that really bothered me as a kid. And I think it was sort of reflective of the broader instability in my life. You know,
Oh, okay. So a better solution would be to like force people to stay together. Okay. All right, sure.
our kids have had, you know, their I mean, my son Ewan, I guess, has had a couple, but the other two have pretty much only had their Cincinnati address their entire lives, and that's like a very, very important and good thing for me. And yeah, that's certainly part of the appeal of the Catholic faith.
Your position on those family values have gotten a lot of scrutiny lately.
Sure.
You've talked about childless cat ladies. You've called
Fine.
childless people sociopathic, psychotic, deranged. And I know that you've said that those comments were sarcastic, but it's hard to hear those words entirely as a joke. What do you actually think of childless women in society?
Sarcastic. Oh, grow up. Oh, grow up. So stupid. One sec. I wanted to show something really quickly. Where is it? Sorry. Ew, look at his smile. Jump scared. Jesus Christ. That smile. It all started with that smile. Mayor cat. Mayor cat. Mayor cat. Yeah, me too, Mayor cat. Anyways, this guy literally has unresolved mommy and daddy issues. And even though like 50% of fucking Americans have to deal with their parents getting divorced and having, oh my God, 2 different Christmas presents, he made it his whole personality. And he's the type of person to say this type of shit, talking about like in 2021. Oh, here you go, America, you can go. Vance lamented that children suffer when their parents divorce, even when those marriages were violent. In his memoir, he describes being raised by his grandparents who had a chaotic and violent marriage. He recounts a scene in which his grandmother doused his grandfather with gasoline while he slept on the couch and lit him on fire. For Vance, even this extreme level of family violence is preferable to divorce. And he says here, Vance believes that people are just too quick to divorce and would have the process be more difficult. In his 2021 speech, he equated the ease of shifting spouses to changing underwear. Not only are Vance's beliefs about divorce misguided, but his proposed policy initiatives would have serious consequences. No-fault divorce allows couples to divorce without having to prove that one party is to blame. Many right-wing politicians, Vance included, are advocating for eliminating no-fault divorce, which would further curtail women's rights and endanger children living in abusive homes. Like, JD Vance's fucking melted conservative brain unironically thinks, yeah, you know what? These two people that hate each other, well, they should stay together no matter what. Because the kid might have to share his address and then know that he's not going to get letters there anymore. Are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like, what the fuck? Is this a joke, dude? Think about the change of address form. Grow up. Like, literally grow up and move past your fucking trauma, dude. Children do not benefit from being in households where the parents fucking hate each other. And it does nothing but negative things to your brain. And builds you or like sets you up for failure in future relationships because it normalizes behavior that shouldn't be normalized.
Society.
Well, as I said when I made those comments, and look, they were dumb comments. I certainly, I think most people probably who watched this have said something dumb, have said something that they wish they had put differently.
And you said it over in several different venues.
In a very, very short period of time. It was sort of a thing that I picked up on. I said it a couple of times in a couple of interviews. And look, yeah, I mean, I certainly wish that I had said it differently. I mean, what I was trying to get at is that, look, I'm not talking about people who it just didn't work out, right? For medical reasons, for social reasons, like set that to the side. We're not talking about folks like that. What I was definitely trying to illustrate in, ultimately a very inarticulate way is that I do think that our country has become almost pathologically anti-child. I put this in a couple of different ways, right? So there's one, it was actually when I was in law school. I was on a train between New York and New Haven. I think I was doing like law firm interviews or something. And obviously I didn't have kids then. And there's this young girl gets on the on the train. She's probably 21 or 22. She's, young Black female, clearly I could tell by the way she was dressed. She didn't have a whole lot of money. She had a couple of kids with her. And, I remember like just watching her and thinking like, this is a really unbelievably patient mother. I mean, for being literally younger than I was, the reason I sort of noticed her is because her kids, like a lot of kids that age, are complete disasters, especially on public transportation. They turn it up to 11, but she was being so patient. But then like everybody around her was also noticing the kids being misbehaved, and they were so angry. And, they were and sighing and staring every time her 2-year-old made a noise. And that was sort of a moment that kind of stuck with me. And then, of course, I've had similar experience.
You fucking dipshit. That's not society being anti-child. That's a bunch of people coming home from work on their bus and then having to deal with a fucking child screaming. What the hell are you talking? That's not being anti-child. That's, dude, I do not want to deal with this right now. Like, I just had a stressful day at work. I want to fucking go home. I want to sit on this bus in some fucking peace. They would do the same thing if it was a dog barking or if it was some drunk person yelling. It's not about the kids. It's about, I don't want annoying noises while I'm trying to go home from a long day of work. It doesn't matter what's producing the noise. I don't want to deal with this annoying noise.
Is riding with my own kids on various modes of public transportation. And again, it just sort of hit me like, okay, this is really, really bad. This thing that we do where we make motherhood or fatherhood, or there's this, again, I do think that there's like this pathological frustration with children that just is a new thing in American society. I think it's very dark. I think you see it sometimes in the political conversation, people saying, well, maybe we shouldn't have kids because of climate change. When I've used this word sociopathic, like that, I think is a very deranged idea. The idea that,
again, like I said, I wonder how JD Vance would feel about that kid getting free lunch at school. Surely he thinks that the kids should get free lunch, right, guys? This is so stupid because if you even talk to a fucking parent, they'll tell you, dude, kids are so fucking annoying. I hung out with a family friend and they brought their kid with them. The kid's like 4 or 5 or something. I asked and he was like, he's turning 5 soon. And I was like, the entire time I was like, wow, that's so much work. The entire time, the kid is just demanding attention, which, hear me out, okay? Listen, look, listen. I get it. It's a kid. At like 4 or even 5, you've just started being a person. Because let's be real, at 1 and 2, you're not perceiving shit, man. You're just like, there's nothing happening, right? There's nothing happening. Sorry. You demand more attention than most kids, though. Lol. Bricks in glass houses, buddy. Okay. All right. You've been arguing with everyone you can argue with. For what attention? I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say it. I'm sorry, man. Sorry. Anyways. What was I saying? What was I on? Oh, yeah. I remember. I get it, okay? At like 4 years old, you're like, dude, wait, I'm like alive. I want to do stuff. Oh, shit, I want to do stuff. Oh, my God, I want to touch all the things. I want to say whatever I want to say. I get it. I understand. I was annoying when I was 4 and 5. Surely. But the entire time I was like, man, this kid is demanding so much attention. Oh my God. This kid is demanding so much attention. And then I was asked, well, do you want kids? I was like, maybe I would adopt if I had like a lot of money and free time, and I was kind of bored. Like, I feel like life gave me everything it had to offer, and I have enough money that I could help, you know, a kid that would otherwise sit in a fucking foster system. And they were like, trust me, there's, if you have the money and time, you will not be bored enough for a kid, okay? And they were like, it's a lot of work. I was like, wait, because you're kind of eating, I'm not gonna lie. It's not about society being anti-children. It's not about the fact that people hate children. It's that children are fucking annoying. That's what kids do. They're children. They don't know how to behave. They don't know what to do. They're just trying to experience life and trying to understand the world around them. They're learning what the world is about. And unfortunately, that means that kids do annoying shit around people that don't want them to be annoying around them. Like, again, don't get me wrong. When I'm around kids, they're allowed to be as annoying as they want, you know? Especially like babies, especially. I don't really like babies, I'm going to be honest. But that's because like there's nothing there except for this screaming, you know, baby. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. It's just screaming on my fucking airplane. But like I'm in an elevator with a kid and the kid's like, and then I want to tell you I got this train and it's like, oh yeah, what about the train? Whoa, that's a sick train. Like they're just doing their best, man. I don't want to give them negative reinforcement. I want them to be excited about the world. I don't want them to grow up with the same fucking social anxiety that I have. I want them to feel like they can talk to anyone about whatever they want, right? Or like, I've seen videos, and I'm sure you guys have seen videos about like, you go to like an arcade or something, and then there's kids that come and start playing on your game or whatever. Because, you know, obviously kids are going to be in an arcade or whatever. My anger is at the fucking parents who allow their kids to do that shit. The kid doesn't know any better. It doesn't know, oh, this is your turn to play the game. It's fucking trying its best, dude. It's barely functioning. My anger is with the parents because the parents should be able to tell the kid, no, you have to wait your turn. When they're done, then you can go. Okay? All right? Which is what they're supposed to do. And then they fucking don't. Sorry. Listen, okay. Under a certain age, children are still like, they are not he or she, they are it, okay? I'm sorry if that's disrespectful to babies, but like, a 1-year-old is not a he or she, it's an it, okay? Come on. I think that's okay to say, all right? It doesn't become he, she, or they until at least 4. Okay? It's a baby. I'm just right about this. If you disagree, you're just mad. Okay? I don't know what to tell you. It's just a ball of poop and vomit. And some people love those balls of poop and vomit very much. And to you, you know, I commend you. That's a lot. That's impressive. That's really cool. I can't. As a former 1-year-old, I'm offended. Sorry. They're just really high maintenance pets until at least 3. There's nothing there. Okay? There's nothing there. I'm correct. I'm correct about this. Anyways, moving on. I think most people, like I said, I think most people don't see children and get mad because they hate children. I mean, we're biologically hardwired to like human children. We are supposed to like them. And there's a good chance that if you're a human being, you like human children, especially ones that behave and ones that their parents teach them that they need to behave and they can't just touch everything they want to touch and yell whenever they want to yell. And I think a lot of people's frustration and anger gets taken out on the parents who oftentimes fail to do anything about their kids' bad behavior. Because I'm going to be honest, if you like get mad at even a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old for engaging in bad behavior, you're kind of a freak because that should be directed towards the parents for failing to instill any manners in their kids. The kid doesn't fucking know any better. Can confirm. I don't really like being around kids, but my cousin's kids are fantastic because they're taught right. Yeah. And by taught right, to be very clear, I'm not saying like beating your fucking kids. Jesus. I'm just talking about like, hey, you have to ask for permission before you touch someone else's stuff. Hey, don't just run around in these areas. If there are people walking here, don't just run around. That sort of thing. Have you heard of the 10-year-old that stole like 60 cars since he turned 7? Dude, that kid is on his fucking grind, dude. Get your money up, not your money up. What if they don't listen? Well, good parenting is not just demanding stuff out of the kids. Good parenting is like teaching kids that good things happen from good behavior, right? Obviously, different kids are going to require different levels of like hours or a different amount of effort and time and whatever, but like it's positive reinforcement, right? Dude, straight up. I was at a family friend function and I made some fresh donuts. I did. I forgot to take pictures. I was like, I'm going to take these pictures. I'm going to show chat that I made these fresh yeast donuts that I proofed that looked so good. These cinnamon sugar dusted donuts. Anyways, I forgot to take pictures and they all got eaten. And there was like a kid there. It's like 7th grade kid. And they had like a quiz the next day. They were like, no, I don't want to study for my quiz. I want to watch anime. Because I guess like the new episode of Dandanon came out. And dude, her mom was so mad. She was like, no, you have to fucking study. She didn't curse. Sorry. I added the cursing. She's like, you have to study. I'm serious. And she's like, no, I want to watch Dandanon. No. And I was like, hey, listen, kid, you get 100. I'll bring you some donuts. I can make more donuts. I can make more donuts and I'll deliver them to your doorstep. And she was so excited. She was so hyped. She was like, oh, I can't get 100. What about an A? I look at her mom like, okay, what about an A? And the mom was like, yeah, you get an A, she'll bring donuts. You're allowed to have more donuts if you get an A. She's like, I'm going to get an A. I'm going to get an A. I can't watch anime. I can't watch anime. And she tells her dad, like, we can't watch Dandanon today. I have to go home and study. Good news, guys. She got an A, which means I have to make more fucking donuts. What did I do to myself? I just felt so bad. I was like, oh man, I want to encourage good behavior. Basically, my point is, you have to scold or have negative consequences for things, right? You can have positive reinforcement. Like, hey, if you go home or if you go outside and try your best to behave, good things happen. And when you have enough positive reinforcement from like doing the right thing, which in this case would be studying, right? You want to do that thing over time because you just have positive experience after positive experience after positive experience, right? Whereas if every time you try to be a good person or to behave or to do the right thing, you get negatively reinforced, you're not going to do it. Anyways, long story short, it's not that people don't like kids. It's that there are so many parents that don't care that their kids are disturbances to everybody else in society. And there are a lot of people that get mad because they have to deal with this. And they can't even get mad at the kid. If like a 6-year-old runs at you at full force, you can't get mad at the kid. It doesn't know, but you're still upset because you didn't consent to dealing with this shit, right? So, anyways, great example of it takes a village. Yeah. And also you can always lead by example. Yeah, exactly. 100% agree.
You shouldn't have a family because of concerns over climate change. Doesn't mean you can't worry about climate change, but in the focus on childless cat ladies, We
So are you
missed, I
saying
think,
that
the
women,
substance that we
women who
missed,
don't
we
want to
missed the
have
substance
children?
of what I said.
Sorry, I just want to clarify something. So women who
Please.
don't have children because they're worried about climate change, that's sociopathic?
I think that is a bizarre way of thinking about the future. Not to have kids because of concerns over climate change. I think the more
I mean, I think if you're concerned about the general notion of climate change, that would be weird. But I think if you're concerned about climate change and you live in a coastal city and you're worried and you're lower income and you're worried that within a few decades, you will become a climate change like refugee and your house and your fucking neighborhood is going to get flooded. Yeah, I don't think that that's sociopathic. I don't think so.
bizarre thing is our leadership who encourages young women and frankly young men to think about it that way. I mean, bringing life into the world has totally transformed the way that I think about myself, the way that I think about my wife, the way that I think. I mean, you watch your grandparents interact with grandchildren. It is like a transformatively positive and good thing for there to be children in the world. And if your political philosophy is saying, don't do that because of concerns over climate change, yeah, I think that's a really, really crazy way to think about the world.
I mean, we don't know why Kamala Harris did not have children, but do you include Kamala Harris in the category of women that you're talking about?
No, I mean, look, it was everything I know about Kamala Harris is that I've learned about Kamala Harris is that she's got step family, she's got an extended family, she's a very good stepmother to her stepchildren. I would never accuse Kamala Harris along these lines. What I would say is that sometimes Kamala Harris, she hasn't quite jumped over the you shouldn't have kids because of climate change. But I think in some of her interviews, she's suggested there's a reasonableness to that perspective. That again, I don't think that's a reasonable perspective. I think that if your political ideas motivate you to not have children, then that is a bizarre way of looking at the world. Now, again, sometimes it doesn't work out.
I mean, if those political views are based and grounded in reality, I don't think that that's sociopathic. What? What's sociopathic is having your own child come to you in a bout of excitement and telling, and a need to share it with the ones he loves just for the one he trusts to tell him to basically fuck off. Crazy shit, man. Yeah. Topper Whooper, thank you so much for the Prime gift sub. Thank you. Kamala is going to loose hard. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? The only good reason I can think of for not having kids is that you're married to JD Vance.
Sometimes people choose not.
I hadn't read your full sentence out, but I recognized your name and I was like, surely this message will be fine. And then I finished the sentence. I'm one of the parents who makes sure that my sex trophy doesn't bother anyone at restaurants. Don't call it a sex trophy. Look, guys. Yeah, that's right. Read them and weep, boys. Also, God bless you. Fucking God bless you. Thank you. Really, thank you. I have so much respect for parents that try, dude. I have so much respect for that shit. Because, man, woof. Call it a sex amiibo.
Not to have children. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the political.
Okay, wait. Can I say something that's like, you guys might not like this. And if you guys don't like this, I'm sorry. Can I say the term crotch goblins? The only reason I don't like it is because it feels very like early 2000s like lingo. It feels very millennial coded. That's so. I can't even think of anything. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's very Reddit? Yeah. That's the only reason. I don't really care about the statement. It's an old phrase. I know, I just don't. Anyways, but you are a millennial. I'm a cusper. Excuse you. All right. I'm special.
Sensibility that's very anti-child. And again, I think that what really bothers me about the childless cat lady's comment, aside from the fact that, of course, it offended a lot of people, and I understand that, but it actually distracted. My wife made this point. It's distracted from the core point of what I was making, which is that there is something very anti-family and very anti-child that has crept into American society.
I would love for him to show us the instances of the anti-family rhetoric that's just like all over the place that everyone believes in.
And you see it, I think, if you take your kid on an airplane, you see it if you take your kid to a restaurant and people, huff and puff at you. You see it in some of our political
In the same way that they would huff and puff at you if you brought like a fucking dog that couldn't behave. People don't have problems. People don't see children that are well behaved and go, ugh, fucking gross. People don't do that. The only reason they do that is because it's not behaving. Your child is not behaving. It's fucking crying at peak volume, and you don't even care about trying to do anything about it. That's the problem. I don't think that everyone else in society should have to deal with the fact that your child is screaming because you don't want to do anything about it. That's fucking stupid. That's bullshit. Sounds like this motherfucker doesn't discipline his kids at all. I mean, yeah. A child is not a dog. You compared a child to a dog twice. Yes. Correct. They are your responsibility, and it is not fair for other people to have to deal with them misbehaving because you don't want to do anything about it. Other people shouldn't be forced to deal with your bad parenting just because it's a child. You don't get a special pass because, well, it's a child. That's fucking stupid. No.
What is the point of a sex trophy if you don't force everyone else to notice it?
Most kids... Oh, you're a bad parent, huh? Ignoring them is how you deal with them whining to get what they want? Oh, you're a bad parent, huh? That's not how you deal with that. No. Most kids are screaming in public or mad in public because they have nothing to entertain them. Because you planned an outing for yourself and you brought your kid along with you because you didn't feel like signing them up for daycare or getting a babysitter or doing anything else. If you want to keep them in your house and they're screaming in your house, okay, cool. But it's not fair to everyone else to bring them to a restaurant or bring them to a cafe and just let them fucking scream. Why don't you try bringing them some pen and paper and letting them draw or something, or bringing them some fucking toys? I mean, the friends that I was hanging out with that have a kid.
It's not a good sentence to say to support your belief system.
Yeah. Their kid had like these like magnet toys. And so when he would start misbehaving or when he would want attention, they were like, hey, it's all good. It's all good. How about we play with your magnet toys? And then he took out his magnet toys and he was like, I'm building a house. Yay. It's not fair to everybody else because you're too lazy to parent your own fucking kids. That's not fair. Nobody else signed up to have that kid. You signed up to have that kid. The least you can do is give them something to entertain them if you're going to take them outside. Like, it's just so silly. It's just so stupid. You signed up to deal with kids when you went out. Oh, well then I guess you signed up to get like robbed when you went outside, right? If like I lured you to a dark alley and I robbed you, you signed up for it because you left the house, and that's something that can happen, right? Right? It's like, give me all your money, and then you gave me all your money. I was like, well, I guess you shouldn't have left your house. Guess you shouldn't have done that. Silly, silly. It's just silly. Your kids are your responsibility. Nah, bro, I didn't go to a pub to see you there downing a sixer in the corner with your crying kids. Oh, God. Okay, but I've actually seen that in my pub. Well, the fact that you guys are calling it a pub and not a bar, I believe it. Okay.
Policies. I mean, go back to 2020, and I don't talk about this much because most Americans don't care about it. But when those
and entered in your child, referring to your child as our Tamagotchi would be more accurate.
Stop.
Those of us who had children were really reacting to what I would call the COVID tyranny. But, 3-year-olds being forced to wear masks and not even asking ourselves, well, okay, the main way that 3-year-olds pick up on language development is they see the nonverbal expression that comes along with it. Like, are we completely obliterating the language and social development of children? A lot of parents were thinking that. A lot of our elected leaders were not taking that parental perspective. And I think because of it, we responded to it in a disastrous way for our kids. Our education system, pretty much everybody will tell you that our public schools in particular, our kids fell behind in reading, they fell behind in mathematics, our toddlers fell behind when it comes to language development. We have become anti-family in this
Yeah, instead we should just let everyone die. Good idea.
country. I believe that. I think the data is very clear about that. And yeah,
My daughter has Down syndrome and she could have fucking died before there was a vaccine if she had gotten COVID. So my 3-year-old was wearing a mask. It's just stupid. It's fucking dumb.
put this in a better way.
Like, what type of parent would rather see dead kids than kids wearing masks or kids like a year behind on like language stuff? But you can catch up on a lot of that stuff. Like, kids were out of school for a year. You can catch up on a year. If anything, the problem is that schools are underfunded as fuck. So all this anger about like, oh, COVID this, COVID that. How about you? Sorry, let's take it down a notch. How about you introduce legislation that funds schools?
Point still remains.
I want to talk about another big issue when it comes to women and families. And it has been hard to figure out what you and former President Trump would do when it comes to reproductive rights.
Sure.
Trump has said...
Also, sorry, last thing I will say on the parents thing. I know I'm arguing with a 14-year-old, but like, I can't control it, dude. I just have so much fun doing it, man. She doesn't have a point. She thinks everything in society is about pleasing adults who don't have children. No, I just refuse to infantilize parents that are too lazy to do any fucking parenting. And I think by allowing children to scream and being like, oh, I love the sound of screaming children. I love children so much. Yes, this is my favorite, especially when they run up to me and tug my hair as hard as they can, because I just love children and society should be as accepting as they can. No, that is instilling bad morals into those fucking kids. And you are encouraging lazy parenting. I refuse to encourage lazy fucks like yourself who don't want to do shit to actually educate their kids on how to behave. Go fuck yourself. Don't have a kid if you aren't willing to show them you're not allowed to do that in public. You should show your kid how to behave. And if you don't, and sometimes it's going to happen, kids are going to misbehave. Like I said, kids, even with like the best parenting, kids will still misbehave. But I don't think it's acceptable to be like, this is just how kids act. They just act and do whatever they want. And parents just They just can't do anything about it. There's nothing that parents can do to help get their kids to behave better. There's nothing that they can do. Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Grow up, man. Oh my God. Grow up, dude. You're just trying to find an excuse to be as lazy as you can. Okay?
Said he believes abortion laws should be left up to the states. He sometimes supported a 6-week ban. Sometimes he's not supported a 6-week ban. He supports exceptions for rape and incest. You have previously come out in favor of federal restrictions in your campaign for the Senate, with no exceptions except to save the life of the mother. You said Trump wouldn't sign a national abortion ban, but then he said you, JD Vance, don't really know what he'll do.
Stop. Don't talk about the unschooling lady. That one is too powerful for me. That video, like, I know that it's real, but I've convinced myself that it's fake, by the way. Chat cleanse, egg dogging. All right, we're going to talk about abortion. Let's go.
The mother, you said Trump wouldn't sign a national abortion ban, but then he said you, JD Vance, don't really know what he'll do. And in last week's debate, you did try to appear somewhat more moderate on the issue. It is all painting, I think, a very confusing picture.
Well, I don't think it should paint a confusing picture. I mean, look, let me just be clear, of course, on abortion policy. President Trump's view is leave it to the states. His view is, he wants any state to have the 3 exceptions. He cares very much about that. And
the best part about the leave it to the states argument is like,
This reminds of something that happened a few weeks ago. I was at lunch with my mom somewhere, and there was a woman who just sat there and let her baby cry endlessly until they left. I have sensory issues with loud noises, so it was rough RHYZ flop.
Does anyone else have the brain illness where if someone else is speaking, you can't say a sentence? Dude, I hate that. I hate it. I hate it so bad. Oh my God. I'm so jealous of people who they don't care. They don't need to, they can hear anything and they can just yap. It's called listening. How do I get it out of my brain, man? Sorry. My favorite thing about the leave it to the states issue is you're basically saying, yes, slavery should still be legal in a couple states. That's basically what you're condoning.
National policy should focus, as I said in the debate, on expanding the optionality. Because again, I knew a lot of young women who had abortions. Almost always it was motivated by this view that that was the only choice really available to them. That if they had had the baby, it would have destroyed their relationships, their family, their education, their career. And I think that we want to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. We want to promote more people choosing life. And I say this as a person who wants to encourage young women and young families to choose life. But I think that there has to be a balance here, a balance between states that are making their own abortion policies. Of course, California is going to have different policies from Georgia, as we've already seen. And
if you're poor and you want an abortion in one of these states, too bad. SoCal Badfish, thank you for the 17 months. Guys, what's the funniest answer to the question, are you a Democrat or Republican? What's the funniest answer someone could ever give you? Neither. Writing in Biden. Still voting Jenk. Don't care. I'm a libertarian. Listen, dude, I don't want to be a... Oh, fuck, man. That one's too far for me. I'm actually a Scorpio. I'm actually a Gemini rising. That one's pretty good. That one's good. Do it in the bimbo voice, too. Oh, me? I'm a Scorpio. It's a good one. I like it.
And then at the federal government, promoting and increasing the optionality, the choices available.
I'm a Knicks fan. Look at this guy, a fan of the Knicks. Oh, lol. You see how they performed last quarter? That's basketball, right? It's basketball? Okay. Whew. Whew. close one. They hit a touchdown.
which is going to make it easier for women to choose life in the first place. And that look, you talk about being confused. I never came out for a national abortion ban, no restrictions. What I did, to be clear, in my Senate campaign is I endorsed the Lindsey Graham bill that had exceptions and that would have, after a threshold, I think it was 15 weeks, said with reasonable exceptions, after 15 weeks, that's a reasonable place to kind of draw the line.
You said in a podcast, I'm just going to quote here, that you'd like abortion to be legal nationally. That was on the podcast Very Fine People in 2022. And you've discussed the fact that people might be able to get.
Oh, JD Vance. You just be getting on shows and just yapping, huh? Oof. This guy, I don't even know how this guy is getting on so many fucking shows. This guy, I feel like he has an interview or he's on a fucking TV show, or he's on Fox or something, like every other week. And every podcast that he goes on, they're just like, hey man, is this you?
Get abortions in other states. And you said you would need some federal response to prevent that from happening. I'm pretty sympathetic to that, actually.
Well, what Trump has said and what we said on this campaign is states are going to make these choices. Now, yes, I said in a podcast, I mean, I don't have the podcast in front of me, but I'm sure that I said what you said I said. But that's just reflective of my view expressed in 2022 that I want to protect as much vulnerable life as possible. But we're in a different world than we were in 2022. Number one, of course, we now have this decision primarily thanks to the Supreme Court left to the states. I think that's where Donald Trump and I think it should be. But also, look, I've learned a little bit about this. And I talked about this in the debate. When the Supreme Court threw this back primarily to the states, what all Republicans should have learned is when you see people voting, sometimes even people who describe themselves as pro-life, voting for increased access to abortion, the conclusion that we should take from that is we've lost the trust of the American people. And, again, in 2023, I guess, we had a big referendum in the state of Ohio. I campaigned on one side. The people of Ohio, not like a super right-wing state by any means, but, a center-right state, certainly the state of Ohio, voted 60-40 to go in the other direction and to implement, I think, a much more liberal abortion regime than certainly the people on the other side were campaigning for. Well, what do you take from that? Right? You can take the lesson that, we just didn't campaign hard enough. We didn't make the case hard enough. I don't think that's right. I think the proper thing to take from that is we have lost the trust of the American people. When we went out there and campaigned for our position, they instinctively mistrusted us, and we need to get trust back.
What does that mean, though? I've heard you say that, but I don't understand what that means.
I think it's by pursuing these pro-family policies. I think it's by making it
so
easier.
It's not by moderating your position on abortion.
Rather than trying to say that we're going to take options away from women, we want to make it easier for young women to choose life. But I think the way that you're going to do that,
you want to make it easier for people to choose life by forcing them to give birth. Okay. Okay.
in 2024 in the United States of America is to let the states determine their own abortion.
Guys, I'm so sorry. Look at this mobile user. Oh my God. They typed at like 11 o'clock. It's 12 o'clock now. And I asked a while ago, why do you think female and male are better terms? And I guess some other people said some other stuff. 13 minutes before his last message. I'm sorry, chat is moving so quickly. To answer good faith humans in chat, my view on gender is based on what the opposite gender can't do. So a female can give birth but can't impregnate another female, whereas a male can't give birth but can impregnate another female. So is the foundation of what it means to be a man and woman. It doesn't matter if they're sterile / unable to have offspring. What the hell are you talking about? What are you hey man, I'll see you in the next hour once you're done typing the response. then you're done with the mobile delay. Fuck, dude. Oh my god. Oh, this guy, I forgot about him. Did you type anything else? Yes, she's losing. Think about it. She is losing. Oh, I'm thinking about it, all right? I'm thinking about it. I am certainly thinking about it. I'm really jogging the noggin, dude. Why are mobile shutters catching strays? Because I'm hoping that eventually, if I yap enough, Twitch will do something about mobile users being on a 20-year delay. Anyways, moving on.
Policy. Now, again, part of that is protecting the ability of the states to make these decisions. Kamala Harris wants to renationalize the abortion conversation, go in the exact opposite direction. President Trump are saying yes. President Trump and I are saying yes. Sometimes these issues are messy. Sometimes it's going to be a little unusual for, say, California to have a different abortion policy than Alabama, but democracy is sometimes messy. We want to preserve the right of the states to
So
make
you
these
are
decisions.
okay with women traveling to another state to get an abortion? That is something that you would like to see preserved in this country?
Okay.
Yes or no? It's a pretty...
Lulu, I'm saying I'm okay with the states making these decisions. Now, you talk about what I'm okay with. Do I think that the voters of California are going to enact a more liberal policy than I might like to see? Yes. In fact, I'm certainly I accept that as the reality of the state-level, state-focused regime that President Trump and I are encouraging people to take. Am I okay with it? I don't think that's the right way to look at it. I'm okay with the states making these decisions, even if they make decisions that JD Vance or Donald Trump might not make.
I want to move on to immigration.
Sure.
Like I said, you know what? Fuck it, dude. Sure, let's how about we reel it back? Let's let states decide when and where people can be slaves, huh? Because some things are there's just state issues, man. There's state issues.
It's another place where you have had a bit of a conversion. You wrote a piece in 2012 while you were still at Yale criticizing the GOP's immigration positions. And in it you said, and I'm quoting here, think about...
I don't really like the sound of that one, Monka. Sorry.
We conservatives rightly mistrust the government to efficiently administer business loans and regulate our food supply, yet we allegedly believe that it can deport millions of unregistered aliens. The notion fails to pass the laugh test. What changed?
Well, 3.5 years of Kamala Harris didn't help, right?
I love that the Vance interviews are just this you.
You have 25 million people illegally in the country. I think when I wrote that piece, we were probably...
We don't know the number.
We were at 6 or 7 million. Yeah, I mean, look, it's an estimate, right? I think DHS has said it's probably 20 million. I think they're undercounting it for a host of reasons. But whatever it is, it's a hell of a lot higher than it was 12 years ago. And I think that what we've learned is that unless you're serious about deportations, you are never going to meaningfully enforce the border. It's just too easy to come here, right? So you need two things, fundamentally. You need,
fundamentally,
whether it's physical or technological, ideally both, you need some sort of physical barrier, a wall, to make it harder for people to come here illegally in the first place. And you need to be willing to deport people, I think, pretty substantially when you have numbers that are as high as they are today.
How long do you think it would take to deport 20 million people? Because President Trump has promised to deport as many people, undocumented people in this country as there are. So what does that timeline look like for you? Well,
I don't think you're going to have to deport every single one of them, because a lot of them will actually leave the country willingly if you make it harder for them to work, right? So I think that you have to combine, and again, President Trump and I really think this is necessary. You have to deport a large number of people. There are way too many illegal aliens in this country. You have to reestablish some deterrence and law enforcement for people coming here illegally. I think it's certainly reasonable to deport around 1 million people per year in the United States of America. Now, of course, we have 25 million. So that would take a long time, 25 years, if my math is correct. But again, I don't think that you have to deport everybody, because if you reestablish some semblance of a reasonable border policy, a lot of those people are going to go home willingly. If you make it harder for American companies to undercut the wages of American workers by hiring illegal labor, a lot of those folks are going to go home. I've introduced legislation to tax remittances because a lot
That's so weird because I thought illegal immigrants didn't work and they were lazy and they were stealing all of our taxpayer dollars. If they don't want to work anyways, why would making it harder to work make them want to go home willingly? Oh, and they're also eating our cats and dogs. How could I forget? It's so funny that they bring up the cats and dogs thing because, like, those are, first of all, it's not happening. Second, they're not even illegal immigrants. The Haitians that are in Springfield, Ohio, are there very legally. No, don't worry, man. They just got fucking airdropped in like Fortnite. That's how they snuck into the country. Like, what the fuck? It's so stupid.
of what goes on is that
I'm
people
shocked that he, even I'm shocked somehow to hear him say that he wants to starve people out. The battle bus, Pog.
come into the country, they make money, they send a lot of it home to whatever country they came from. If you tax the remittances, then people aren't going to come here to sort of try to work under the table to begin with. So again, I think the focus here is like somewhat off because people talk about the logistical difficulty of making this happen. Well, again, we have had large-scale deportation efforts in the United States. I mean, look, Barack Obama, to his great credit, deported a hell of a lot more people than Kamala Harris has. So you can deport people in this country who are here legally. You just have to have the political willpower to do it. But if you don't do this, Lulu, I mean, what are you're basically saying the United States doesn't have meaningful border policy. I mean, Mexican drug cartels have become the wealthiest criminal organization maybe in the entire world because of what Kamala Harris has done at the border. Not to mention, like, I'm a big believer.
Dude, Kamala, she's in big cartels' pockets.
In the social contract in this country. Like I benefited sometimes from a generous United States government, meaning a generous United States taxpayer that made it possible for us to afford things that we wouldn't have always been able to afford. So when you bring in millions upon millions of people, you degrade and destroy the social trust that's necessary to support any kind of a modern support for poor people,
Coconut tree
food
cartel.
assistance, housing assistance. You are not going to have that stuff if you allow millions upon millions of people into this country illegally, and then they get to take advantage of it.
Well, let's say you were successful in carrying out those mass deportations. One thing that everyone agrees on is that more housing is necessary in this country, right? The reason that there is a housing crisis is that not enough houses have been built.
And that we have 25 million people who shouldn't be here.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. I
think it's both.
I know you do. I don't think that many people who look into this agree with you, but about a third of the construction workforce in this country is Hispanic. Of those, a large proportion are undocumented. So how do you propose to build all the housing necessary that we need in this country?
Guys, it's not the Airbnbs or like the hundreds of thousands of empty homes. It's the immigrants. That's definitely it. Immigrants, I don't know if you guys know this, but immigrants are the largest homeowners. It's true. It's true. Historically, I mean, just anecdotally speaking, most people that I know that are homeowners are obviously immigrants because they just collect so much taxpayer dollars. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Illegal ones, specifically, the illegal ones from all the jobs that they're taking. Mm-hmm.
Country by removing all the people who are working in construction?
Well, I think it's a fair question because we know that back in the 1960s when we had very low levels of illegal immigration, Americans didn't buy houses, didn't build houses.
What?
But of course they did. And I'm being sarcastic, of course, in service of a point, Lulu, the assumption
Holy shit,
that
dude.
because
this guy needs to stop trying to be sarcastic because it's not obvious when he's trying to be sarcastic. It's not obvious at all. Holy shit.
a large number of home builders now are using undocumented labor, that's the only way to build homes. I think, again,
the country is much bigger.
A fundamental.
The need is much bigger. I mean, I'm not arguing in favor of illegal immigration. I'm asking how you would deal with the knock-on effect of your proposal to remove millions of people who work in a critical part of the economy.
Well, I think that what you would do is you would take, let's say, for example, the 7 million prime age men who have dropped out of the labor force, and you have a smaller number of women, but still millions of women prime age who have dropped out of the labor force. You absolutely could re-engage folks into the American labor market.
Oh, so the college graduates that are struggling to find work at prime ages, yeah, we should have them pick radishes for $2 an hour in the blazing heat. I think that's exactly the type of work that they were looking for. Good idea, Mr. Vance.
This is, I think,
To work in construction?
Of course you could.
I
So
mean,
long as you
the
put- so
unemployment
long
rate
as
is
you-
4.1%.
but
Most
the
people who
unemployment rate, Lulu, this is important.
But
The
most people who
unemployment-
don't work can't work in the regular economy. They're in the military, they're parents, they're sick, they're old. They might not want to work in construction.
The unemployment rate does not count labor force participation dropouts. And again, this is one of the really deranged things that I think illegal immigration does to our society is it gets us in a mindset of saying we can only build houses with illegal immigrants when we have 7 million, just men, not even women, just men who have completely dropped out of the labor force. People say, well, Americans won't do those jobs. Americans won't do those jobs for below the table wages. They won't do those jobs for non-living wages, but people will do those jobs. They will just do those jobs at certain wages. And think about this from the perspective of an American company, okay? I want them to go searching in their own country for their own citizens. Sometimes people who may be struggling with addiction or trauma, get them re-engaged in American society. We cannot have an entire American business community that is giving up on American workers and then importing millions of illegal laborers. That is what we have thanks to Kamala Harris's border policies. I think it's one of the biggest drivers of inequality. It's one of the biggest reasons why we have millions of people who have dropped out of the labor force. Why try to re-engage an American citizen in a good job if you can just import somebody from Central America who's going to work under the table for poverty wages? It is a disgrace, and it has led to the evisceration of the American middle class.
So this is
such a joke.
brings us to
This is
another
just-
point, because the way that you discuss immigrants has
This is such a fundamental misunderstanding of like, please excuse the language that's being used. This is just like the technical terms that gets used or that get used. But like, this is such a fundamental misunderstanding about types of labor, the difference between skilled labor and unskilled labor. And again, please excuse the language. Obviously, I disagree with the term unskilled labor on principle because it's not accurate, because a lot of unskilled labor is very much so skilled. But those are the technical terms, so we'll use them for this conversation. It's such a fundamental misunderstanding about the general education level of Americans and the type of work that Americans are sort of suited to do based on their education level, and the type of things that they would be better at doing. Generally, if you have a global market or a global economy, you want to outsource labor as much as you can in places where it makes sense to export. The reality is we can talk about construction, or we can talk about things that I prefer to talk about, like, for example, that I know a little bit more on, farming. So much farming labor that has to be done by hand is done by exploiting migrant labor. That if not for the migrant labor, our radishes and our fucking strawberries and blueberries would be very, very, very expensive. Way more expensive. And of course, that is, it's not unskilled labor. But again, like I said, for the purpose of this conversation, most Americans are not trained for that labor. Most Americans do not want to work in that labor. Most Americans are definitely not going to work even minimum wage at that labor. Okay? They're not going to. It's just not going to happen. There's no universe where that happens. A lot of Americans that have become unemployed, that have worked, for example, office hours or like office jobs, are not going to suddenly change working that job to go pick radishes for like $7.25 an hour. That's a joke. It's not happening. I'll do it for $50 an hour. Yeah. And then radishes are $50 a piece, right? If you were to remove all of the migrant labor in farming, we would just end up importing more farmed goods. The agriculture sector, anything that required too much manual labor, we would just stop producing it here. We kind of already do that with like most farms nowadays. They specialize in just, for example, corn. because it's the most profitable thing to do and it's a lot easier to do with machines. And that's exactly what we would end up doing. I heart corn. Yeah. They cycle corn and like one other crop. Yeah. Didn't they try this before and then like farmers got the law reversed? I don't know what you're talking about, but I wouldn't be surprised at all. So it's just very silly. It's very, very silly. Sorry, I've been noticing this chatter that's just been going off. You don't know anything about farming, LMAO. When have you ever farmed? I'm talking about markets. Talking about markets related to the agriculture sector. On a side note, I am an excellent farmer. Okay, watch me farm keks on you right now.
Has gotten a lot of scrutiny.
So sad for
the
that guy.
Springfield situation in particular, where you talked about the Haitian immigrant community, which we should say they are legally here and allowed
It's not much. It's not honest, but it's work.
to work. And you spread a rumor or helped spread a rumor that they were eating pets, which turned out to be completely false. Off the back of that, there has been an enormous amount of hate, turmoil in that community, bomb threats, kids not being able to go to school. Was the trade-off worth it to you?
Well, there's a lot there that I want to respond to, but I want to pick up on the overall attitude because when we talk about, of course, we can have a conversation. I think we've had a nice, respectful conversation here, but sometimes you can feel happy about the direction of this country, happy about its people, and very frustrated with American leaders. This issue, more than any other, makes me extraordinarily frustrated at American leaders because American leaders who are talking about Haitian immigrants who have no right to be in this country, and we'll get to that in a second, they talk with such compassion about what's happened to the schools, about what people have been unable to do. Where is their compassion for American citizens in Springfield, Ohio, who now, a community of 60,000 people, there are 1,000 children.
Oh, sorry. This article is really good. Jay Hubes, thank you for linking this. This is a really good article. A year later, Florida businesses say that the state's immigration law dealt a huge blow. For like, the sad thing is a lot of Republicans that vote Trump and Vance and whatever don't actually understand. Also, he was about a 14 words. We'll get to that in a second. They don't understand that the policies that Trump and Vance are suggesting are fundamentally against the policies they claim to want to do. So they claim that they want to introduce policy that will make the economy better, that will make inflation better, and that will improve the quality of life and lower the cost of living for Americans. And then they suggest immigration laws like this that do none of the things that they said they were going to do. So, for example, here, this is from April 26, 2024. So this year, it's talking about early in the morning in the small actually, do I want to play the audio? It's a 6-minute listen. Let's listen to it.
Nearly a year ago, Florida approved one of the toughest immigration laws in the nation. SB 1718 punishes employers who use undocumented labor and forbids undocumented people from having a driver's license. This week, we're bringing you stories about the impact of that law. Today, the economic effect. NPR's Jasmine Garst reports.
It's early morning in Plant City, a small agricultural town in southwest Florida. The pickers are already hunched over the bushes, plucking strawberries.
Mario, que quite toda la podrida. La podrida quedó mucho también.
Fidel Sanchez instructs his workers to get rid of the fruit that fell and rotted on the ground. There's a lot of it. Like other farmers I speak to out here, he's worried about how long he'll be able to keep going. About a year ago, Florida governor and then presidential candidate Ron DeSantis passed one of the toughest crackdowns on undocumented immigration in the country. The federal government estimates that nationwide, over 40% of farm workers are undocumented.
Mucha gente se fueron para el norte y ya no regresaron tampoco.
Trabajadores.
Trabajadores, sí.
Sanchez says the effect of the law was immediate. Families he'd worked with for 20 or 30 years headed north from one day to the next.
Pero el gobierno no le importa eso. Piensa que tu cosecha se va a levantar sola, pero no.
The government doesn't care, he says. Maybe they think the crops are going to pick themselves. The Florida Policy Institute estimates that this immigration law could cost the state economy $12.6 billion in its first year.
The most infuriating part about this stuff as well is that I want policies similar to this, or I want paths to citizenship for these immigrants so that they can get paid fair wages, despite the fact that it will hurt the economy. Because I care about the suffering of these people and the fact that they have to live mediocre lives so that we can benefit from their labor. These people want to do it because they fucking hate immigrants. It's like, we are not the same, man. And also, I want to do, like, I don't understand so much of the conservative brain to be told we're gonna fix the economy, and we're also going to make the economy worse by immigrating deporting these immigrants that give us cheap labor. What the hell, dude? How do you know they hate immigrants? Because they say it.
A spokesperson for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis told NPR, quote, Governor DeSantis signed the most ambitious anti-illegal immigration law in the country to protect Floridians, and that Florida can still maintain a robust economy. But Ron Hetrick, a senior economist at Lightcast, a labor market analytics company, says the state already has a serious labor shortage, even if just a fraction of the estimated nearly 1 million undocumented immigrants are forced to leave.
We have a lot of fast-growing cities here. How do these cities get built? How do the houses get built? We all know very well how these things are being built.
Hetrick says what Florida is facing is symbolic of the larger reality in the country. An aging population and politicians framing immigration as a threat rather than a potential asset.
The future, if you look at census projections for the growth of this country, once this boomer population goes through in the next 15 years, without immigration, we shrink.
A spokesperson for Ron DeSantis told NPR that businesses are still free to hire immigrants as long as it's legally. In 2023, Florida hired thousands more H-2A guest workers than the year before. That's a temporary agricultural visa. But farmers NPR spoke to said the bureaucracy of H-2A and cost is crippling. There have also been widespread reports of H-2A worker exploitation by farmers attempting to make up for those costs.
The H-2A system is absolutely broken.
And it's not just Republicans. The psycho libs are now fully out in the open with their anti-immigration sentiment. It's insane. I just don't understand the universe where, like, it makes sense for Democrats, for Kamala Harris, for Biden, for any of these people to also shit on immigrants instead of, like, diffusing the narrative entirely and being like, no, that's stupid. Did you guys want to go pick strawberries in the heat? From 6 to 2? Sorry, everyone who wants to deport the immigrants, and then everyone's standing up. Who wants to pick the strawberries in their place and no one is standing up? It's like, you just don't, what the fuck, dude? What is going on in this world, man? I just don't understand.
It's our only means of getting workers at the farm right now, but it's totally outdated.
That's Gary Wishnetsky, the head of Wish Farms, also based in Plant City, one of the largest strawberry growers in the nation. His field harvesters in Florida are all on H-2A visas. Even for a company as large as them, the cost has become crushing. He has to pay a labor recruitment company, visa application fees, house workers, pay for meals and transportation.
Berries are going to become an item that's going to be a luxury, not something people buy every time they go to the grocery store like they do now.
In the end, he pays 23% more than the Florida minimum wage. The farmers NPR spoke to out here say, despite that, American workers simply aren't showing up for these jobs. It's not just agriculture. NPR spoke to hoteliers, construction business, and restaurant owners who said Florida's labor shortage, combined with arthritic national immigration policies, is hurting the bottom line.
Years ago, you put an ad in the newspaper, you'd have a bunch of applications filled out, or, you'd have people lined up outside your door, right?
That's David Crowther, one of the owners of CFS Roofing Services in Fort Myers. Because Florida is in the path of hurricanes, roofing is in high demand here. And Crowther says people are no longer lining up for job openings.
That doesn't happen. It just doesn't.
About 10% of his workers left after Florida passed its immigration bill. They were scared for the safety of their undocumented family members. At the end of the day, Crowther says if he could hire more immigrant labor, it would trickle down into more jobs for American workers.
If I knew I could get an unlimited supply of labor, I then would start hiring estimators and salesmen over to start promoting more work. It's a domino effect.
Crowther says business is good, but it could be so much better if only he could find more workers. For others in Florida, it's not business as usual. It's been unraveling. A few miles north, at a fruit market.
All they have to do is pay their workers and they don't have that problem, LMAO. Why am I supposed to feel bad for someone explicitly using them for cheap labor? Oh, you're not supposed to. No. You absolutely should not feel bad for people who are like, oh man, I have to pay workers enough to live. Oh, this sucks. Ugh, this is hard. No. Please don't get it twisted. I'm saying this is worse overall for the economy. And this is worse overall for Americans. Because those are not jobs that Americans want to do. But I also think that just because something is worse off for Americans or for the economy doesn't mean you get to just be an immoral person. I mean, removing slavery was bad for the economy. We should still have removed slavery. Like, that, I don't give a fuck about the economy. I give a fuck about the people who have to live in this shithole. My point is that conservatives want the economy to be good, but they also want all these anti-immigration laws that would make the economy worse. And that's stupid. That's just, you can't have both. You literally, you can't, it's like that one, have you guys seen that one comic? It's like a comic of like a person trying to throw a ball for a dog to go play fetch. This is the one. Here it is. This is the average conservative. Please throw. No take. Only throw. Can you please make economy better? Can you please? No. Deport immigrants. They just don't. They don't understand. They want their cake and they want to have their cake and they want to eat it too, and they can't. You can't deport all the immigrants and expect the economy to get better. That's not how that works. Because the labor that immigrants are doing is not labor that Americans want to do. Here's literally, here is proof of this thing. Here are these farmers, or these people that own farms, capitalists really, that say we can't find people that are willing to do this job, even though we're paying more than minimum wage, because surprise, surprise, most people don't want to fucking pick strawberries. The people that are doing that job are the people that have to do the job because it's the only labor they can find. I mean, I can tell you for a fact that most people that I've met will take a pay cut to work at home. Almost across the board, most people that I've met will take like a 20% pay cut if it means they get to work remote. Yeah, no shit. You want the easier version of the job, even if it means you make a little bit less. And you don't want to get paid more if you have to sit in an hour of fucking traffic. That's literally what I'm doing. I lost half my income. To be fair, you do gain back some of that income since you don't have to pay for gas and you don't have to pay for like lunch outside or dinner outside or whatever. Denims, I literally took a 20K pay cut to work from home. It evens out a little bit since you end up saving a lot of money and a lot of time. But I mean, I've met people who've taken larger pay cuts and they're like, I just really don't want to. I don't mind going to the office once a week, maybe twice, but I don't want to go in 5 days a week. It's fucking stupid. It doesn't even out all the way, but it's way nicer. Yeah, I mean, even just on a stress level. It's just the people I know aren't saying that they're taking the pay cut because it will save them money. They're saying, I do not want to fucking commute to work. I don't want to have to fucking wear nice clothes every time. I don't want to have to show up when everything I can do it on my computer. Have my boss breathing down my neck. I don't want to deal with that. Having to go get lunch somewhere that's like, I don't even want to eat that, but it's the only thing nearby because I can't have the privilege. Or even people who are like parents who want to be home with their kids, but they have to go to work. And it's like, man, this sucks. I wish I could be here because my job isn't that demanding. I just need to do some work on a laptop and I can do it while hanging out with my kids. So it's the same concept. It's the same concept. I can tell you for me, and probably for most people in here, the pay boost you would have to get to start doing physical labor as someone who doesn't do physical labor, it's like 100%. This is also why I suggest that if traditional college is not something that you want to do or something that you're interested in, you should do trade school. Because trade school is worth it because physical labor and physically demanding jobs pay more because people don't want to fucking do them. Because they're really tiring on your body, which is also why, I mean, sorry, I'm kind of a radical on this. And I think like if you work construction or you work any type of physical manual labor that's in the trade school world, I think you should retire like 10, 15, 20 years sooner than your coworkers that work in office jobs. Because it's just such a physically demanding job. It's not fair for you to have the same retirement age as people who work remote work. Because like work is still work. But there's a difference between standing on your feet for 8 hours. There is a difference. And after a certain age, you can still sit on a computer at like 65, 70 and work on your computer. You really shouldn't be working construction at 70. You can't. There should be like every year you work, you take some time off of your retirement age. Every year you work like physical manual labor, you take a year or 2 years or something, like half a year off of your retirement age. Because it's just not fair. And we need people to do those jobs. I want electricians to continue to fix the wires that fall after storms or whatever. Okay? I want people who fix roads to continue to fix roads. And I think that they should be rewarded for their service. I deliver mail all day and you're right on the money. Yeah, mail is another one. I mean, nurses and doctors are another one. Like if you work in an ER or as a paramedic, that's a very exhausting job. If you're like a family doctor and you're sitting in your fucking nice air-conditioned room all day, different. Very, very different. You guys get what I'm talking about. I think you guys understand what I'm talking about. Mail too, you carrying crazy shit, dude. Oh yeah. I feel bad. Sometimes the things I order, like I order a desk online, I'm like, I feel so bad for this delivery driver, dude. Oh man. Fuck. But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm for people. That's my policy. My policy is people. My policy is, I think we should try and help the most people possible as much as we can. And if that means some billionaires aren't billionaires anymore, good, actually. Fucking great. Fuck those guys. And if that means millionaires don't get as rich as quick, great. I think that's good if it means that people who work physical manual jobs get to retire a little bit sooner. I think that is a good trade-off, actually. And if that's communism, dude, cool, great, wonderful. I'm the full-blown commie then, I guess. I'm a nurse. I'm only 29. I already have severe back pain. Oh, I don't doubt it. I have like I have back problems. I have back problems. And I literally, yeah, I standing for more than a couple hours for me causes like severe pain. If I had to physically like work a job that, well, I have worked jobs where I've had to stand 8 hours a day and it's like excruciating pain. I have gamer back. Yeah. Honestly, delivering mail as you speak, dude. Yeah, you're reclaiming your labor though. Sick. But how will I make my $44 billion impulse purchases? How will I buy Twitter and turn it into a shithole? No. Oh, God. Jesus Christ. Anyways. Also, yeah, I lost the chat message, but someone was talking about having worked physical labor and then started working in an office, and there is definitely like, oh, here it is. I used to work physical labor and now work in an office, and it's frustrating how much office people think they're better and smarter than folks that do physical labor. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The white collar, blue collar thing is a little bit real. It's a little bit real. But it's like, dude, you could be the biggest dumb fuck on the planet. Like, you could not know how to do math, okay? Like, you could tell me, Denim, I don't know what 2 + 2 equals. If you pave our roads, I still think you should get paid fairly, and I think you should retire sooner. I don't give a shit. You could be dumb as a rock. Can you put the gravel in the floor? Can you put the cement in the floor? Can you fix the pavement? Yes? Great. That's totally fine. That's totally fine with me. Math problems are too hard? I don't give a fuck. My road is working, and that's what I care about. You can not even read. You could be illiterate, okay? You could be fully illiterate. If you're fixing my roads, I think society should treat you well. And I think you should be taken care of the way that you take care of the rest of society, all right? Terrence Howard doesn't know what 2 + 2 equals. You value necessary labor? Yeah. Precisely. Correct. That's valuable labor. I don't give a shit if it's unskilled. Do I need it? Yes. Okay. Great. Sounds like you contribute way more than like Elon Musk does, which is good enough for me. I cannot do physical labor. The one time I worked a job moving giant bags of salt, my toes went black just from carrying them while standing and walking. Damn. That's crazy. That's actually kind of scary. What the hell? Yeah. No, I got a scan done. The scan said I had back problems. That I had like degeneration on my lower back. And I'm like, oh, that's why if I stand for more than 2 hours, my lower back starts killing me. And it hurts so bad. That's why. Okay. All right. Nice. Nice. Okay. Okay. Sick. Yeah. Big booty problems. My back hurts from having to carry all this around. I saw this one image. Wait. I didn't think I'd have a reason to show this image off, but I actually do. Hold up. Don't worry. It'll be worth the wait, surely. Don't worry, guys. This is me IRL. Besides your phone, your wallet, and keys, what do you carry with you every day? All right, enough of that. Enough of all that. Okay, enough of that. Also, increased risk working manual laborers. Worker comp claims aren't filled with people sitting at desks. Yeah. And obviously, you guys already know, I think that like call service jobs or call center jobs are like some of the most soul crushing jobs you can have. And I really do feel bad for people who have to fucking work in call centers. It's just there isn't a risk that you are going to physically hurt yourself at an office job. I guess it's technically possible, but there isn't that same risk. It's still labor. And it sucks to get berated at your job and there's nothing you can fucking do about it. But I think that all labor should be respected. But I think even people who work office jobs understand physically hurting yourself and then not being able to go to work anymore. Besides the fact that it impacts your body and now you have to live with this pain or this injury for the rest of your life, or have to have a disability for the rest of your life. You also might be unable to work anymore. Not to say that it's harder or easier or whatever relative to other types of emotionally stressful jobs, like teaching, for example. Like, even if you aren't standing 8 hours a day as a teacher, your job is important and you should be respected and you should get good benefits for your job. You shouldn't get paid garbage. I just don't think it's as necessary or important for you to retire sooner because there isn't as much physical stress on your job. I still think you should get paid time off and like better pay. But you guys get the point that I'm making. You guys understand. Do you ever talk about the John Oliver on disability benefits? Honestly, I didn't. Now would be a good time.